Okay, let's think about life. We always assume water, right? Liquid water seems indispensable, but what if? What if the actual building blocks could form somewhere totally different, somewhere without water, but, with some kind of stable liquid? Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at Saturn's moon, Titan. There's fascinating new NASA research about the possibility of cell-like things, vesicles, they call them, forming naturally, right there in Titan's freezing hydrocarbon lakes. So you've given us the sources on this. Our mission today is to unpack what this study really tells us. Where might life pop up, and how does this just completely challenge our usual definition of habitable? We want to get right to the heart of this discovery, with all the cool details.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating, really, is how this research forces us to just step back and reconsider our most basic assumptions about what life needs. It's not just about Titan, you see. It gives us these profound insights into what conditions might be needed for life's precursors.
Yeah.
It really expands our whole concept of habitability. It makes you ask, maybe life is more chemically flexible than we ever really thought possible.
Okay, let's dig into that because, yeah, when we think alien life, we immediately jump to follow the water. But Titan just kind of throws that whole idea out, doesn't it?
It completely does. Titan is unique. It's the only place in the solar system, besides Earth, that we know has stable liquid right there on its surface.
Yeah.
And this is the really big, but it's not water. It's this incredibly cold mix of liquid hydrocarbons, things like ethane and methane. So yeah, the immediate question is, if water is so critical here on Earth, how could life's essential bits and pieces possibly come together in that kind of environment? It's freezing.
And before Cassini got there, Titan was mostly just this big orange fuzzy ball, right? Hidden by haze. What did Cassini tell us about Titan's environment that makes this new research about vesicles seem, well, actually plausible?
Right. Cassini was a game changer. Arrived in 2004. It totally transformed our view. It showed us Titan has this thick, really substantial atmosphere, mostly nitrogen, actually, but with a good amount of methane. And crucially, it confirmed those stable liquid hydrocarbon lakes and seas. That was huge. The only other stable surface liquid we know of. And beyond that, Cassini found this dynamic weather system. It sounds almost like Earth, in a way. You have methane condensing, forming clouds, raining down.
Methane rain.
Methane rain, yeah. It carves river channels, causes erosion, collects in the lakes, evaporates back up. A whole cycle. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, well, this whole cycle, powered by sunlight, it's breaking down methane. And the fragments are recombining into more complex organic molecules all the time.
Yeah.
Many astrobiologists look at that and think, maybe this gives us a window into how the building blocks of life got started on the early Earth. So Titan provides both the liquid, the solvent, and the complex organic stuff to dissolve in it.
Okay, so we've got this dynamic world, almost like a giant cold chemical factory making complex stuff, which sets the stage perfectly for this new NASA study. It's in the International Journal of Astrobiology, right? And it talks about vesicles. What exactly are vesicles, and why are they considered like a really key step towards life?
Right. Vesicles are basically enclosed structures. Think tiny spheres. They're seen as a crucial stepping stone towards making the basic structures of living cells, what we sometimes call protocells. Here on Earth, they usually form from molecules called amphiphiles.
Amphiphiles.
Yeah, they're interesting molecules. They have two different ends. One end is hydrophilic, it likes water. The other end is hydrophobic, it hates water, repels it. So you put them in water, they naturally arrange themselves into these spheres, kind of like microscopic soap bubbles.
Okay.
The water-loving ends face outwards towards the water, and the water-hating ends tuck inside, away from the water. And sometimes you can get two layers of these forming a membrane, a bilayer, that can trap a little droplet of water inside, basically a primitive cell membrane. That's how we think the earliest cell membranes might have formed on Earth.
Okay, that makes sense in water. But how on Titan do you even start to think about that concept in liquid methane? It seems like you need completely different chemistry. What was the big conceptual leap here?
That's exactly the challenge. You're flipping the chemistry almost completely inside out. The study proposes this really clever mechanism. It focuses on sea spray.
Sea spray for methane seas.
Yeah, tiny droplets of liquid methane or ethane getting thrown up when methane raindrops splash into a lake or sea. Now, the idea is that both these little spray droplets and the surface of the hydrocarbon sea itself could get coated in layers of, well, hydrocarbon-based amphiphiles.
So not water-loving and water-hating, but hydrocarbon-loving and hydrocarbon-hating.
Precisely. Molecules with that same kind of dual nature, but adapted to a hydrocarbon environment. And here's a really ingenious part. Imagine one of these coated droplets falling back onto the coated surface of the pond. The two layers of these special amphiphiles, one on the droplet, one on the pond surface, they meet, and they spontaneously combine. And boom, you get a double-layered vesicle, a bilayer, trapping the original droplet inside.
Wow. Okay, so you can get these little bubbles forming just from rain splashes.
That's the proposed mechanism, yes. And the idea then is that over time, you'd get loads of these vesicles floating around in the pond.
You mentioned something earlier, interacting and competing in an evolutionary process.
Oh.
Hold on, are we talking like natural selection? In methane, what does survival of the fittest even mean for these bubbles? That seems huge.
It is a really profound idea, yeah.
Yeah.
The thought is, once you have a population of these vesicles dispersed in the liquid, well, which ones persist? What determines their fitness in that alien environment? Maybe it's how stable they are in the cold liquid, or maybe how well they can repair themselves if they get damaged, or perhaps how efficiently they can pull in more organic molecules from the lake around them.
Okay.
This sort of chemical competition could, potentially, lead towards primitive protocells, those really simple early structures that might replicate or grow, precursors to actual cells.
So the competition is for stability, for grabbing more material.
Exactly. It's a completely alien take on a kind of pre-evolutionary process, a chemical evolution, if you like.
So stepping back, what does all this mean for the big picture? For searching for life out there? This feels like it really redefines what we even mean by habitable, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Liquid water has always been the gold standard,
Yeah.
The non-negotiable. This research says, well, maybe we need to think much broader. Consider a whole spectrum of chemical possibilities for how life might begin. Like Connor Nixon from NASA Goddard put it, and he's quoted in the research, just finding any vesicles on Titan, even simple ones, that alone would show an increase in order in complexity. And those are necessary conditions for life to originate.
Right, order from chaos.
Exactly. So this opens up totally new avenues for research on Titan.
Yeah.
It might fundamentally change how we look for life there down the road. It forces us really to broaden that definition of habitable.
And speaking of looking, NASA's got that amazing Dragonfly mission going to Titan, a rotorcraft, like a giant drone. Is Dragonfly going to be able to spot these vesicles, or is that maybe a job for a later mission?
Dragonfly. Yeah, that's incredibly exciting. It's set to launch, I think, 2027. Its main job is to fly around Titan's surface, land at different spots, sample the materials, measure the atmosphere, check out the geology, basically get the lay of the land and assess the overall habitability.
So vital information.
Absolutely vital. But it won't actually have the specific instruments needed to detect these tiny vesicles directly. Things like specialized light scattering instruments. And it's not planned to land right in the lakes or seas either.
Okay.
But the data it will gather, like what exactly is in those lakes? What kinds of complex organics are on the surface that will be in valuable context? It builds a foundation, It could tell us if the ingredients are right, which would inform how we might design a future mission to specifically hunt for these vesicles or other biosignatures.
So this deep dive really shows. Wow. The conditions needed for those very first steps towards life might be way more diverse, maybe even more common than we used to think. From methane rain to sea spray to these tiny bubbles forming and maybe even competing, Titan just keeps surprising us. It challenges everything.
And it leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If this kind of increasing order and complexity, the stuff that precedes life, can happen in such a bizarre non-water environment, what does that really tell us about the fundamental definition of life itself? And, where else in the universe might we find it? In forms we haven't even imagined yet.
Definitely food for thought. So for you, our listener, maybe think about this. What other basic assumptions we hold about life, or even about how the universe works, might need a rethink as we keep exploring? Keep pondering that one until our next deep dive.